I just came out of a relationship that Esther would probably describe as Mr. Toad's wild ride. And I feel a little nervous, but ecstatic right now. I feel that I am in a better place than I have been over my lifetime.
Think about the benefit of a relationship like that in terms of the data that you must have put into your vibrational escrow. In other words, can you feel the expansion of, and we're going to say the potential you only because you've got to catch up with it, the expansion of the relationship that you have been in the process of creating. It was dramatically added to through Mr. Toad's wild ride, wasn't it?
Yes, very much so. Interesting that you spoke so much about anger too, because the person that I was involved with constantly had outbursts, many outbursts of anger, and I seem to have a problem with that, so I kind of...
Well, you know, that's why we talk about it in the way that we do here, because most everyone has a problem with being up close to someone who gets angry often. And there are a number of reasons, but we'll just lay them out quickly for you. One is that if a person doesn't realize that they are actually being called up the emotional scale, everyone is, whether they know that they are or not. When they get into anger and they don't realize that they could still go further, then as they get into anger and then society condemns them for their anger, they go despair, anger, guilt, anger, despair, anger, guilt, anger. In other words, they just keep bouncing back and forth, and they don't realize that it's a cycle that they can break out of. And the other thing that happens, but this is the basis of it that we really want you to understand, when someone does not understand, when you're with someone who displays anger and it affects your relationship with them, what's really going on is that you have forgotten what we just said to you again about you've got to not care what anybody else is thinking. In other words, when someone displays anger and it makes you feel like you need to modify your behavior, what happens is the person who's displaying the anger gets some sense of relief because you have then changed the circumstances that they thought that they were negatively responding to. Think about how it must feel to not know about law of attraction and not know that you're source energy in a physical body and not know the utter worthiness of your being and not know that vibrational escrow is full of all that good stuff you want and not know how to just move up the emotional scale to close the gap to receive it. Imagine how it must feel to feel powerless, you see. And so in that not understanding, they remain in powerlessness, and then they have knee-jerk responses to the call of their inner being. In other words, almost everybody who finds themselves in anger has been hearing the call, they just don't know that they've been hearing it. So we're just giving you a little basis of that. Any of you who live with anyone who is angry, first of all, the best thing that you could do for them is not jump to their anger. The best thing that you could do for them is say to them, I cannot change the circumstances that will in any long-term way affect the way you feel.
Well, a part of me, I feel kind of like I've tried to do that and just came down to where I just couldn't, I felt unhappy all the time. I felt disconnected.
Well, it feels to us as if you've left that relationship behind, yes?
Yeah, I'm kind of wavering on even whether or not I'm trying to keep a friendship open and
of course, once you have a relationship, relationships are eternal. All the days that you lived that relationship and days even before that, you've painted the picture of vibrational escrow of what you want. So you would never need to have another experience or say another word, and Source knows the perfect relationship situation that you're looking for, and in fact has gathered it all up and has organized about 25 immediate avenues for you to rendezvous with exactly what you want. Source energy is all queued up, ready to give it to you, but you can't hear that signal because you're still over here in despair and blame and guilt. but that signal is still there calling you. So what you need to do is right now start forking in the direction until you can get a beat on the signal. So the only thing that you want to do is improve the way you feel as you talk about this subject, or you want to stay off the subject. Now, there is something to be said for just not picking the stick up. You see, there's this stick called relationship, but right now, that stick called relationship has that person's name all over it, and it stinks on that end of the stick. So every time you even think relationship, you go over here and start vibrating. Now, this is really interesting for us to see, because that Mr. Toad's Wild Ride that you were talking about caused vibrational escrow. Over here is created this extraordinary future already realized in non-physical relationship. It's already there in its fullness. But here's the thing, that relationship set your set point on the relationship dial.
Okay.
So every relationship that's on its way to you right now is coming at that vibrational level.
No.
So it's going to be different places, different faces, but essentially the same relationship. So this is a wonderful opportunity for you to move up the dial. We're not trying to clean up your vibration so that you'll get back together with this person. We're wanting you to clean up this vibration. Hear this. Clean up your vibration so that you can become vibrationally aligned with the part of you that became during that relationship. Is that making sense to you?
Yes.
Every fight you had, every time you were tense, everything that was uncomfortable caused you to say, prefer this, prefer this, prefer this, prefer this. And so Source has put together this wonderful package of a relationship for you to which you are nowhere near vibrationally. And so you really want to move toward it, you see. So the way you do that is by taking this situation and talking yourself into feelings of relief. And as you close that gap, then things will start happening in your life experience that will be evidenced of that improved vibration.
Okay.
So, didn't like the hassle, didn't like the tenseness, didn't like the constant bickering, didn't like the fighting, didn't like the fact that you had to stand on your head in lots of different ways, didn't like the fact that you were constantly being criticized, didn't like the fact that the world didn't look beautiful through that one's eyes and started to not look beautiful through your eyes, didn't like the fact that there was never enough money, there was never enough organization, there was never enough things that made you feel good. In other words, it felt sort of like that, didn't it?
That covers it.
So we think that it would be beneficial to you if you would get into some angry juices about this. In other words,
Okay, therein, I think that therein lies the problem, because I have a problem with anger.
we know you do.
Expressing
Almost
anger.
everybody does. And you know why? You know why you do? Because when you got angry, people got angry at you for being angry. But we've already told you that they're out of the equation altogether.
Okay.
In other words, if you could get joyful, we would ask you to embrace joy, but you can't get there. And we want you to understand, and this is why we chose you to begin first, because you're a wonderful representative. Everybody's getting a lot from this, because you are needing to move through anger, and you've been told that you shouldn't be angry. And that's why people go from despair to anger, despair to anger, despair to anger, despair to anger, to rotten relationship after rotten relationship after rotten relationship, because you haven't given yourself the permission to feel the way you feel and move through it, you see. And so, who does this person think? In other words, let's hear it from you. We could do it for you.
Well,
but
I had a dream.
now, don't get off the subject. Stay on the subject.
I had a
Get
dream
mad
last
now.
night that I punched him in his face. So
Now, what that means is, you see, now hear this. We really want you to hear this. Your inner being is calling you toward the light. And in your sleep state, you were less resistant than you are sitting here on the hot seat. And so in your dream state, you translated what your inner being was calling you toward, and you punched him in the face. And do you remember anything about how that felt? Initially?
I don't remember too much. I think it probably felt good, but I punched him in the face and ran like hell.
All right, so
And
feel
then-
the relief of that. And the reason that we encourage that, and there are people freaking out all over the world as they're hearing recordings from Abraham, as we are encouraging people into revenge. But you know, the reason that we're saying this is because it is the most natural thing in the world. When someone makes you feel powerless and you then find anger, you feel better. Look around your world and see what's happening. If people could understand that it is the most natural thing in the world, then you wouldn't freak out when the terrorists offer their revenge. You would understand it and hope that they could be coached into something that is less destructive than the terrorism. And we promise you that anybody can move from any place up that emotional scale once they get moving in the right direction. In other words, if you just feel powerless and then you get angry and you don't know that you are deliberately doing it, and so you're not patting yourself on the back for having chosen a thought that felt better, so you're not really feeling your empowerment, then getting angry doesn't serve you. And we know that you've seen people like that were just in despair and angry and in despair and angry, and it just seemed like such an angry cycle. And when you grow up around that, then you say, I'm not going to grow up like that. And we say, but what's the alternative? The alternative, if you don't move yourself up the emotional scale, is to stay in that powerless place, you see. And so it's possible that you could be so upset about the idea of being angry that you could have a quantum leap, maybe past anger. But we have never seen it happen. We have never seen it happen, which means it must be all right to move through that, you see. So now take the dream. You've punched him in the face. You feel like running away only because you're afraid he's going to punch you back. But let's paint a new dream. In other words, you've punched him in the face and you're out of his way. In other words, he can't offer you anything that is detrimental anymore because you're out of the way. And so now you can punch away if you want to. And we just have one question for you. Does it feel better to take back your power by thinking about that angry stance, or does it feel better to kowtow?
Oh, it feels better to be
All right,
angry
now
and
from
take
your
my power.
now from your anger, let's reach for hopefulness, because from what we can feel from you and from most people, you can get from anger to hopefulness in a few statements. You can. I hope I never see this person again. I hope I never get myself in a relationship like this again.
Yes.
I hope I've learned something. I hope I found some of my own empowerment. I hope that I really did fill up vibrational escrow with good things. I hope that all of this really pays off and that the time I spent really did launch lots of rockets of desire. And I hope I'm wise enough to feel the clarity of what happened here. And I hope for an improved situation. And I hope that there will be enough of a buffer of time that I'm able to clean up my vibration before I begin attracting anyone else. And I hope that I'm wise enough to know that I'll recognize people as they begin coming to me. And I can feel already that I'm not feeling as much despair as I felt before. And even talking about hope, I can feel that I'm leaving the feeling of anger behind a little bit. And I am actually looking forward to what the universe has in store for me. And I know enough about law of attraction, and I know enough about my ability to focus, and I know enough about improved emotional feelings, and I know enough about this moving up the emotional scale game that I can, if I find myself worrying about it or in despair again, I can easily get back to anger. In fact, I could write a whole book full of things that I'm angry about. So I know that I never have to worry about getting back into despair again, because I know that I've got some anger stuff in me. In fact, I haven't let this anger out for so long. I must have book after book after book after book of anger that I can fall back on. So anger is going to be much easier. I never have to worry about falling back into despair. And from anger, I've already shown myself that I can get to hopefulness. And from hopefulness, I really believe that out there somewhere is someone who's been having other experiences like I've been having, and there's somebody out there making the same sort of statements that I am, that there's somebody there for me. And I am beginning to believe that source energy really has lined some of this up. And I'm thinking that as I start relaxing more and more, and it doesn't have to happen this red hot minute, as I'm relaxing more and more and more and more, what's going to begin to happen to me is I'm going to begin to see the evidence of my more hopeful vibration. And I'm not in any big hurry. I'm looking forward to the fun and the adventure along the way. And it's going to be fun to see what turns up. I'm actually really looking forward to see what turns up. I can foresee a day. I can feel myself one day, long time from now, actually feeling happy about what happened there, which caused a launching of this. I'm happy about my punching in the face dream, and I'm happy about the frustration pages that I wrote, and I'm happy about the believing pages that I've written, and I'm really, really now believing that someone out there is there for me, and that this person who is on the way to me could not be as magnificent as this person bees had it not been for Mr. Toad's wild ride that I just rode. I regret nothing. I have failed at nothing. Nothing's wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with the other person. It was just an experience that we had together to help me in the clarifying process. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, am I clear.
Thank you.